Let's now quickly bring you the breaking news which is coming in right now, and that is the fact that an announcement has officially come in after weeks, even months of will he, won't he. Sachin Tendulkar, possibly the greatest batsman India has ever seen, has made his formal announcement that he will retire from the one-day format of the game. He has, in his statement, which has been put forward, said that he feels blessed to have fulfilled the dream of being a part of a World Cup winning Indian team, and it has now become the time for him to retire. Now, of course, Sachin Tendulkar's retirement has been a matter of massive debate for a while now. Sachin Tendulkar clearly wanting to go out on a last hurrah, on a really big note as a part of a really big career. There were a lot of questions really surrounding on whether he would be playing the one-day international series against Pakistan, and now it seems that that is not going to happen, with this very clear statement coming in on the day when the squad against Pakistan was going to be announced. Sachin Tendulkar saying that he will not be playing one-day games anymore. Let's quickly go over to Rika Roy, who will be taking us through this in more detail.
Thank you very much, Kajari. Yes, of course, now we know that one of the greatest batsmen of our generation, Sachin Tendulkar, has indeed announced his retirement from one-day cricket. Let me quickly take you through some of the stats of Sachin Tendulkar. He has played 463 one-day matches, and remember, he was the first one to have scored 200 runs in one-day cricket. He had that double century against South Africa a couple of years back. Since then, Sachin Tendulkar has been picking and choosing one-days. The last time we saw him featuring in a one-day tournament was in the Asia Cup in Bangladesh, where he scored his 100th 100. Of course, the Master Blaster from Mumbai has scored over 18,000 runs in one-day cricket, and with a phenomenal strike rate of 886. We've seen many memorable knocks, many memorable innings from Sachin Tendulkar over last many years, over last 23 years, and this is going to be the end. Many thought that he would play the one-days against Pakistan, but that isn't going to be. But one, of course, will hopefully see Sachin Tendulkar back for Test cricket against the Australians when they come home in February. That series will, of course, begin from the 22nd of February. For now, Sachin Tendulkar will be resting and recuperating. We won't see Sachin Tendulkar anymore in the shorter format of the game, that is the one-days. Sachin, of course, had retired. In fact, he opted out of India's T20 team long back, but this is the end of Sachin Tendulkar in one-day cricket. As I told you, Sachin Tendulkar has scored over 18,000 runs in one-day cricket. He's scored over 463 matches. He's not been in a good form of late, and probably the selectors had a word with him this morning when the selection meeting was taking place. We of course know MS Dhoni, Duncan Fletcher and the 5 wise men of Indian cricket are meeting this morning to pick a team for the 2 T20s against Pakistan, and of course the one-day series. We are joined by senior journalist Sharda Ogra on the phone line. Sharda, if you can hear me, were you expecting Sachin Tendulkar will retire from one-day cricket ahead of this series?
Not ahead of the series, ahead of some point in time. Yeah, you did think that it would come. The fact that it's come on the day of the selection rather than before, we can sort of question all that, and there's been news around it as well. But it was. I mean, his career is winding down, as you can see. So it's not a complete surprise or a shock or anything of that sort, because it is. I mean, it is sort of nature taking its own course, and he probably decided. There was a lot of talk that he would play Pakistan because he made his debut against Pakistan and he'll play his last one-day series against it and so on. But perhaps not. Maybe he wants to just play the Australia Test series, see if he can give himself a little bit more time to work himself into a kind of a some kind of form, coming into that series and to do better. So I'm not really surprised in that sense. I'm not really, completely aghast by the fact that this news has come out.
Well, you're hearing senior editor of Cricinfo, Sharda Ogra. Sharda, if I may ask you, would Sachin have wanted one last hurrah?
I think every great player, every player would have wanted one last hurrah, but that's the last hurrah he's been waiting for. I think particularly in Test cricket for about 18 months now. He had a really and he's played well. So I think I don't know what the one-day game can give him anymore. What he can what he can give to the one-day game. I think after the World Cup, I think pretty much people expected him to say no, he's going to quit, and he didn't. And people's memories of what he was like as a one-day player will always be there. People would rather not remember him for the last 1.5 years. After the 2007 and 2008, I think he had really cut down on the amount of one-day cricket he played. He literally played like 3 or 4 matches a year leading up to the World Cup because he wanted to save himself for that, and then he did get the World Cup. And what else would you want as a cricketer to get after a World Cup in the one-day game? So it's last hurrahs are great, but I think he's had a very long career, and the memory of that will stay rather than the last hurrah.
Nikhil, the selectors were having a meeting this morning. Do you think that they would have spoken to Sachin Tendulkar and said that it is time for you, Master, to take a call?
Well, Rika, I would imagine that, of course, they would have spoken to Sachin Tendulkar, and the biggest question would have been with regards to the 2015 World Cup. Would Sachin, or they would have asked Sachin, how long does he see himself playing one-day cricket? This probably could have been the question put to Sachin Tendulkar, and probably the answer would have been that, not for very long. I don't think Sachin Tendulkar envisages himself playing cricket or especially one-day cricket for very long, and that is where probably the decision would have been taken. Eventually, it has come out as a press release that Sachin himself has gone ahead and said that no, I think the selection for the 2015 World Cup should start right now, and this is what the selector should look at, and that's exactly why the decision has been taken. Now, this particular news, Rika, can be looked at 2 different ways. One, I'm sure there'll be millions of Sachin Tendulkar fans who'd be upset, who'd never be able to see Sachin Tendulkar play one-day cricket. But on the other side, it does go on to show that he's still pretty serious about Test cricket, which means you can expect him to play against Australia, which will be a very, very important series. That means he wants to give his 100%. Remember, after the Nagpur Test, there were question marks raised about his Test career too. With this announcement, one can be rest assured that he's going to play the series against Australia, and that can be looked at as a positive too. Rika?
Right. Nikhil, we were speaking to Cricinfo senior editor Sharda Ugra, and she said Sachin Tendulkar should have retired just after the World Cup. So would you say this retirement comes a little too late in the day?
Well, Rika, in hindsight, you'd have to say yes. I mean, just look at the records after the 2011 World Cup, and the answer is very evident for anyone to see. He hasn't had a great time in one-day cricket. He got that 1 century against Bangladesh in Asia Cup. Unfortunately, India ended up losing that match. So yes, if you look back at the record after the 2011 World Cup, it hasn't been great. So it's the easier thing to say that yes, he should have retired. But I guess for the person that Sachin Tendulkar is, the kind of records that he has, I know that tons of one-day Test innings that he's played that all of us remember. But look at one-day cricket, the thing that he did to one-day cricket. Before Sachin Tendulkar, one-day cricket, wasn't the same. The aggression that you saw in one-day cricket, it all changed with Sachin Tendulkar. Some of the one-day innings that come to my mind is that Desert Storm that he played against Australia in Sharjah, one of the best one-day innings one would have seen. So in that sense, he's left behind a legacy of one-day cricket. But I guess it was time. 2011 World Cup probably could have been the cut-off. Didn't have a great time ever since then. But the good thing, like I mentioned earlier, would be that he can now concentrate on Test cricket and probably give what the Indian fans deserve, a good series win after the disappointing Test series that we've had against the mighty Australians.
Yes, Nikhil, you talked about my favorite innings too, the Desert Storm. 18,000 runs in one-day cricket with that phenomenal strike rate. Who is now going to fill in his big boots?
Well, I guess, Rika, if you look at the one-day team, it would have been very tough to, look at the playing 11 and accommodate Sachin, Sehwag and Gambhir together. I know the Indian team has done it in the past with pushing Gambhir down to number 3 and Sehwag and Sachin opening. But I guess with Sachin now making an exit from the one-day team, it saves the selectors the trouble and the captain the trouble of deciding on the playing 11. So you can go back to your set opening pair of Gautam Gambhir and Virendra Sehwag, and then the way Virat Kohli has been performing, he was being pushed down to say number 4. Now he can come at the number 3 position, which he likes as well, and I guess it gives a settled look to the Indian team. Remember, with Sachin being part of the one-day team, we saw what happened in Australia. There was a rotation policy. I don't think ever in Sachin Tendulkar's career there was a rotational policy. So that is something that he had to go through during the Australia tour. Could have been one of the reasons why he's decided not to play anymore one-day cricket. It could have gone while thinking about the playing 11, but with his exit, I guess the playing 11 just sorts itself out. You've got Sehwag and Gambhir right on top, and then Virat Kohli coming in at number 3.